Hey, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and today I'm actually reviewing a product. It's the Tonic Holtz Glass Media Mat, and it's a little long, but hopefully you'll stick with me because it's a thorough review. Hi guys, so today I'm doing something a little different. I am reviewing the Holtz Glass Media Mat to see if it's something the average user really needs to purchase. It's not horribly expensive. I think it retails for $39.99. I paid a little bit less than that because it was on sale when I bought it. So that's not a huge amount of money, but it's not a tiny amount either. And I'm a little skeptical about the need for it, although I think everything Holtz does is brilliant. So that was why I wanted to try it out and see if it was really going to make as much of a difference in my life as a crafter as the claims seem to say it will. So as you know, it's pretty big. So the original shot of this was, I had to hold the camera up really high. My camera doesn't go super high, so unfortunately you're not going to get the whole view of the mat. But it is pretty big. It's, I believe, 36 this way and then 14 inches this way. And I know when he designed it, he has said in like Facebook Live and things that I watched with him, that it's designed to sort of work as like, this is your workspace. So if you're a crafter and this is, and maybe you don't have like a specific room or desk or area, this becomes your designated work area, and it's fairly big because of that, which I think is nice. This is how it looks coming out of the box. It is wrapped in cellophane, and it has these little feet on the corners. My cellophane did tear when I was pulling it out of the box. It is pretty difficult to get out of the box, at least for me. But that's good because it was packed very tightly, and since you're shipping this and it is glass, you don't want it to break, and so it did ship to me in it's in perfect condition, so that's great. Now I think you can leave the little feet on the corners or off. It's up to you. I'm going to take it off. It does lift the board up a little bit higher if you leave them on, off your work surface. Well, no, not really. I guess not. After I pulled them off, it doesn't really make a difference. They just fit right on there. I think I'm going to take them off. But I would say if you were going to be somebody who is like moving this around a lot, you might want to leave them on just to protect your corners, like if you hit them against something or anything. Now, one of my concerns about this is, it's glass, which really should be a good thing because it's a very resistant surface as far as like anything becoming permanently stained on it. However, for me, since I'm a YouTube person, I have a lot of lighting, not great lighting, but some lighting, and I don't really want the lighting and the camera reflecting in the video, and I can already tell that's happening. You can see I have a big overhead light, and then there's my camera, and then over here I've got sort of like, some not so great lighting on either side, and that's very obviously reflecting in the surface, which for me is not great. I think for, obviously you guys may not be making videos for YouTube, so that doesn't really matter, but for me that is kind of an issue, so that's not so great. I'm a little disappointed in that. But it's not unexpected because, glass is a reflective surface. And the fact that this is black, I think, is not helping that. But that is not something you guys are going to really care about, I'm assuming. So as you can see over here, you can't really see it too well. I'll slide this over. There is a little... This is like a craft mat thing, which would be very similar to what I have underneath this. It feels very much the same. It's got a little bit of a grip on it, and the craft mat that I normally use does get stained. It is not as like super stain resistant as like the Ranger Ink Essentials sheet, which is this guy. which you can see is a lot smaller than the actual mat. Like the mat's going around quite a bit here, beyond this size. So, you know, so don't think of this, I think, as the same as this kind of thing. It does say on the box, and Tim Holtz has said in his presentations, that alcohol inks will stain this, so do not use alcohol inks on this. And I agree, because I have used alcohol inks on my mat that's underneath this, and it has stained them. So don't use alcohol inks on this. But they do work on this, although you do have to take some like alcohol to clean them off. But anyway, so then most of the surface is the glass part with this nice grid on it, with a ruler at the top. And so it starts at 0 in the middle, and then it goes out by inches, out to 7 inches on each side, and then there are millimeters or centimeters up at the top. So if you're in any country other than the US, and you want millimeters and centimeters, those are up there as well. So you can see that up here at the top. So that's really nice, and these are 1-inch squares, and then they're divided into like there's half-inch lines for the hash marks, and then there are solid lines for 1/4-inch marks. So that's really nice. And then up at the very top, it's divided down into looks like 1/16 of an inch, which is very nice. Or no, sorry, yeah, 1/16 of an inch. Okay. So that's really nice. So you don't have to have a separate ruler. You can just use this as like a measuring area, which is very nice. And then over here on this side, which I'm going to kind of turn this over here. This comes off. So this is the little craft mat sheet. So you can see it's like this. And it's really sticky on the back, so it sticks really nicely. So you could like remove this and use it over here if you wanted to. But it comes off, and then underneath is glass with white under it. Move the camera. And you can see it's like divided up in a grid. So there's these grid marks. So he has said you could use this as like a watercolor palette, and we will try that in a little bit. And that's less reflective than the black, which is kind of nice. And so I actually kind of prefer that, just for the lighting issue, although you can still see the lighting in it. But so I wanted to kind of try this out and see, is it going to work as sort of, he has said, Tim Holtz has said, as well, you know, for just my everyday crafting uses, and for my videos and things. So I'm going to try a variety of mediums on this, and we'll see, like, how does it dry on the mat? Does it stain it permanently? Hopefully not. How do you clean it? That kind of stuff. In the presentations I have seen him do, it's very easy to clean, and so that's kind of what I'm anticipating. One of the things I'm especially interested in is how does this blend with distress inks? One of the things that he mentioned in his Facebook Live was, and he showed it, was that like the blending on this mat is a lot easier than the blending on this mat. So especially along the edges, like you get more of a seamless blend. So I will try those two, and maybe we will do that first. So as I'm blending on from the Ink Essentials mat to the cardstock, you can see I'm getting this little bit of an edge on here. And I'm a like really impatient distress ink blender, so I'm not super light-handed, but you can sort of see how the edge along here is darker than the rest of it. And so what he showed was when you do it on the glass mat, you don't get as much of an edge, if any. And so I'm not he's certainly a much better distress ink blender than I am. So, he's better at this. So I just kind of want to show you from, in my experience, like what the difference is. Okay, honestly, I don't really see a huge difference. Let's see if I can, here, let me put this behind this. This is definitely like not as dark. because I'm kind of heavy-handed. So, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this, was to show you that, like, if you're not like a super expert distress ink blender and really light-handed, which I'm pretty good at it, but I'm not real careful. Is there a huge difference here? No. There's a bit of a difference, yes. I mean, yes, this is definitely getting like darker along this edge. This is definitely lighter. A little bit smoother, I guess. I kind of like the dark edge. Like, I kind of like to have the edge highlighted, so I've never had a problem with that. But it's possible that if that really bothers you, that this might be better. I'm going to try to be very light-handed. Let's see what happens if I try to blend the lighter color into it. You know, does that make a difference? Is that going to be easier to do? I'll just do it along the side. You know, is it going to be smoother if I blend down from the peacock feathers? I'll do it on this side first, so we're getting the sort of traditional blend going here. Just the way I would normally do this with my Ranger Ink Essentials mat. Sorry, my disc shakes. So you can kind of see the blend from light to dark. I'm not doing a super great job. And then we'll go over here. And I'm trying to be purposely, on this especially, kind of more light-handed than I was initially, just to see, does it really make that big a difference? Okay. So here's what you're seeing. I would definitely say, looking at this now, let me move this over. This side definitely looks better. Hopefully you can tell the difference. Like, there's definitely more drag on the outer edge with the Ink Essentials mat than there is with the glass mat. Like, you can see how, I'm getting a lot of shadow. This is a more smooth blend than this. So although initially I didn't see a huge difference, and still the edges are a little bit darker. Like, even on the glass side, I am getting a little bit of you know, highlighting along the edge, but that doesn't bother me. I kind of like that. I will say that I do think that the this blend is a lot nicer than this blend. This one isn't terrible, but this one, pretty good. So in that sense, I think it does make a difference. Okay, I'm going to switch over to voiceover now to hopefully save some time, because this video is getting pretty long. But this is some Distress Oxide blending that I did with the mat. I used Tattered Rose and Squeezed Lemonade. I've used Bristol Smooth cardstock on the right and some inexpensive cardstock on the left. The glass blending is on the left side of the cardstock pieces. The Ink Essentials matte blending is on the right. And honestly, there was not a huge difference in the quality of the blend between the Ink Essentials matte and the glass matte. But that's not that surprising. Distress oxides are easier to blend together than Distress inks, so that wasn't a huge shock. The glass side is a little bit lighter, but otherwise really no difference there. And then I tested alcohol markers, so I used both Copics and Spectrum Noirs to color a portion of a stamped image. So I have some purple Copics that I'm using here to color some of the petals on this flower, and I'm going to really get a lot of marker on here because I want that marker to bleed through the paper to find out, is anything going to happen on the mat if the marker bleeds through, which, you know, generally is an issue on a standard craft mat. My craft mat that I currently have will get stained if I allow that to happen. So then I use Spectrum Noir yellows on the inside of the flower, and you can see that it has bled through the paper. But there is nothing on the glass mat. I don't feel anything. I don't wipe anything up. I don't see any color. Nothing happened. It stayed on the paper and it did not stain the glass mat. So that was pretty nice. And then even when I draw it on there and let it dry a little bit, it just wipes right off with the handy wipe. Then I wanted to try using the white area as a palette. I wasn't anticipating like a huge difference between the glass and like a regular, say, plastic paint palette, because both are non-porous surfaces. But you can see how nicely the mini distress inks like fit in the little grid palette over there. So that was kind of fun. And I'm just gonna basically take a brush and a little bit of water and use the distress inks to paint some of the petals on this stamped image that's on some watercolor paper. And as anticipated, it was super easy to do. I thought it was really nice. Like the glass is super smooth, and it stayed wet forever. And then I blended 2 dark colors. So this was pine needles and broken china. You can see them there on their own. And then I blended the 2 together to get a middle shade right there. And that worked like a charm. And I really, really liked that the palette is flat for that. Like that made it super easy to do, and everything stayed wet really long and really moist and nice. And so I really, really liked the glass palette part. I also think it could work for blending alcohol inks together. So that I'm going to try that in the future. So how about heat embossing on the glass? Is anything going to happen? Well, I didn't anticipate any problems because this is tempered glass and it is heat resistant. So I just basically stamped and poured embossing powder over an image. And now I'm just going to heat set it with my Ranger heat tool right on the glass. And it worked, no problem. No problem with the glass, so that's a check mark. And then I wanted to see what would happen if I tried cutting something on it. So I'm using a craft knife on top of the glass to cut this piece of paper in half. So am I going to get any scratches? So I'm going over this 3 times and it cuts apart and not a scratch at all on the glass. So that was pretty impressive as well. And then does stamping ink stain it, since I do a lot of stamping? So I'm going to use both VersaFine, which is a pigment ink, and then Ranger Archival ink, which is a permanent black ink that usually dries on everything. And I was more concerned about the archival than the pigment ink. So after an hour, the pigment ink didn't dry, which is not surprising because this is a non-porous surface, but the archival ink did dry. It was a tiny bit sticky, but when I tried to clean it off with the baby wipe, it came right off. No problem at all. Same with the pigment ink, so no staining there. And then finally, I tried a whole bunch of different weird things on it and let it dry to see how the cleaning would be. So on the left-hand side, I've got some Altenew spray ink right there that has dried. Then in the middle, I have alcohol inks. So I've got 2 alcohol inks and one of the silver mixatives. Then I added some Tonic Nouveau embellishment mousse and let that dry on there. Above that, I have some gel medium, which is like a mixed media tool. It's kind of like an adhesive. It dries clear. That is actually some glitter paint, although I didn't know at first what it was. So that is actually the Ranger Multimedia Matte that has dried in the middle. And then the paint is this paint from Art Anthology. It's called Frost. It's a glitter paint. And then that's the glue. And then the pink is some Art Alchemy Metallique paint that has dried. And I also have some Copic marker that I let thoroughly dry on it. Below that, I've got some acrylic gesso right there. And then I used some molding paste and sprinkled some glitter on it while it was still wet and then let that dry. And up in the upper right, which you can't see right now, but I will pull the mat down, I put a few Tonic Nouveau glitter drops and let those dry just to see how hard it would be to get those off the mat. So first I'm going to start off with my baby wipe, kind of like which would be the equivalent of like water on a towel. And that took a lot of it off. That took off the spray, that took off the molding paste, that took off the gesso and the Nouveau mousse. It also took off the Tonic glitter drops too. So that took off a lot more than I honestly had anticipated. Did not take off the adhesive or the higher quality paints. So for that, I used my scraper tool. This is like a razor blade scraper tool. And that took off the adhesives, the paint, and the silver mixative because that was kind of thicker on the alcohol ink side. So I'm left with the alcohol inks, the little orange dots there. And so for that, I used some isopropyl alcohol from my bathroom with a cotton swab or a cotton ball. And I just got that off, no problem whatsoever. Cleaned everything else off. That's what I use on my Ink Essentials mat when I use alcohol inks too. And so the mat is entirely stain free. So what are the pros of this in the end? I do think it's kind of cool as an all-in-one work surface. As far as everything I standardly use as a paper crafter, it all seemed to work on it, and it was super, super easy to clean it up, and it's completely stain-free and good as new. It's also really, really heavy duty and high quality for the cost. I think $40 is a reasonable price for this, and it's really what you get is worth the money. It's also a nice size, especially if you can leave this as a designated workspace for yourself. Like, it's not too small, it's not too big. It's kind of just right for an area to actually create a project on. The white palette area was really nice for actually seeing colors and blending. I really liked being able to blend all on a flat surface. That was cool. The distress ink blending on it is slightly improved. I do think there's a little bit of a better difference on the glass mat. And then I like that it's lifted off the table, which I didn't really mention, but it makes it easy to keep your stuff on the edges and keep your work surface clear. Now my cons. I do think it is heavy-ish because it's glass and it's large, which, you know, is a good thing on one hand, but if you have to move it frequently and store it somewhere, that could be difficult to do. The black background color is not my favorite. It's very reflective, as I mentioned, for my lighting, and then it also makes it difficult to see color or small objects on it. So you really only have the white palette area to see what color you're really working with, and that could be an issue in certain occasions. The glass surface could get fingerprinty and filmy, so if you're a person that hates fingerprints on your stainless steel appliances, that could bother you. And ultimately, I didn't really think, other than with the distress inks, that there was a huge difference between using the glass and just the regular craft mat I already have. So my bottom line opinion is, if you do multiple types of crafts or need to switch out the mats you are working on often, like needing a self-healing mat for cutting, and then a regular mat for paint, and then an ink essentials mat for alcohol inks, etc. This is a great tool that can replace all of those surfaces and is well worth the money. However, if switching out mats you work on isn't that big a problem for you, and you would have to choose between spending $40 on this or spending $40 on some new inks or stamps or paints, then my advice would be to spend the money on the new inks or stamps before you purchase this glass mat. While it does provide a nice work surface and offers some improvement with distress ink blending, I personally don't think it is so revolutionary a surface that you need to purchase this without question ASAP. I'm sorry. I think it is a high quality product, but at the same time, it's not so life-changing that, in my opinion, it is worth trading for something like the new colors of distress oxides, for example. Of course, this is just my opinion and is based on my own experience with it so far. I hope this has been helpful for you, but you will need to make your own decision based on your own individual needs. Thanks so much for watching my very first review video. A review summary and the pros and cons are available over on my blog. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up and let me know what you think. Will you be purchasing the glass media mat? Or are you using the mat for some things I didn't think of? Does the lighting reflecting in the video bother you as much as it does me? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I'd also love it if you would subscribe to my normally card making tutorial focused YouTube channel if you haven't already. Thanks so much and have a great day.